Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash. My name's Ashley, and today I am so excited to bring you this amazing Easter wall hanging. Now, this wall hanging was so great, it deserved its own tutorial. So, if you feel like you are ready to craft something great and an amazing statement piece for your wall, this is the video for you. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then hop on over to Facebook and Instagram and give me a like and a follow on those. We have a great crafting community and I would love to have you a part of it. All right, let's get started. To start our sign, I'm going to take these two love signs that I got from the Dollar Tree. Now, I decided to go with these ones because they have the slats cut in, but you can get any kind of long signs and do this project. So the first thing I did was pluck off that heart that was in the front, and then I turned my signs over and took out the staples that was holding the twine hanger. And I did this for both. Now, even though I'm going to be using the other side of the signs, I did decide to sand that down where the staples were. Then I went ahead and sanded down the front a little bit, and then I had to take my scraper and take off any of that glue. So originally, I was just going to paint right over the paper on this, but then I realized this paper actually peels off. So look how easily this paper did peel off. So I went ahead and peeled off all the paper. Now on this first sign, it came off so easily. All I had to do really was kind of peel it off and pull it. But on the second sign, that one was a little bit more stubborn. So I had to use a bunch of different tools to get all of my paper off of there. But eventually I did, and then it left me these two amazing signs with the slats inside that look like shiplap. Once I got the majority of the paper off of both signs, I took my sanding block and sanded each of them down really, really well. That way I had a smooth surface when it came to painting. The next thing I did was take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I gave each of these boards one coat of that. Now, I made the mistake of pouring the paint right on the signs, and as you can see, the paint kind of got in those little slats. So I tried to figure out how to clean them out a little bit. So at first I took a piece of paper. That didn't really work. So then I took my little knife scraper, and that seemed to work a little better. Then I learned my lesson for the second one, and I poured the paint onto the paintbrush instead and tried to stay clear of the wooden slats in the middle. After my signs were painted, I put those off to the side and let them dry. Next, I took these two tin buckets that I got in the party section at the Dollar Tree. Now, I purposely went with white because I'm going to paint these and I figured they'd be easier to cover. So I took the handles off by using my wire cutters, and then I also used my miter shears to cut these tins in half. I kind of went back and forth between the wire cutters, the miter shears, and my scissors, and it's so flimsy that it didn't really ruin my scissors at all. So I started off by putting just one little slit up top, and then it easily just kind of peeled down the middle. Then when it came to the bottom, I had to use a little bit more elbow grease and get that off. Now I did go ahead and take off the sticker on the first one. The second one, I didn't even bother. It didn't really make a difference. So this looks a lot harder than it is, but I promise you the result at the end is totally worth it. And really, it wasn't that hard. It was just kind of figuring out what tools were best to cut this in half. I did this for both, but ended up only using 3 of my halves. After I got these cut apart, I went ahead and took my hands and just kind of shaped them so they looked like little half pails. Now I did attempt to try to take this little knob off, but then I realized that it would leave me with a big hole, so I just left it, and honestly you can't really tell. So then I just kind of cleaned up my edges a little bit and cut off any of the sharp parts by using my wire cutters and the miter shears. And then after that I sanded down my edges just a little bit so they weren't so sharp. After I had them all sanded down and shaped how I liked it, I took a piece of foam board and I just traced out a square around each of my pails. Then I went ahead and cut them out and hot glued them onto the back of each pail. After all my pails were glued down, I took my knife and cut off any excess foam board around my pails. That way it created the shape that I wanted. Now I suppose you could just hot glue the pail directly onto the boards itself, but I just wanted to add the foam board. That way it gave it extra support and actually had something for the hot glue to hang on to. Plus I thought it would be a little less messy because if you hot glued these pails right to the hot glue, or to the boards, then the hot glue will spill out and kind of make a mess on your board. So I kind of do recommend using the foam board method, and it worked out perfectly. Next, I took my Waverly chalk paint in the color Elephant Gray, and I gave each of my pails 2 coats of that. I made sure to cover the entire pail except for the back of the foam board. That part is going to be hot glued to the board, so it's not necessary for you to paint that. But I did make sure to get the top, the underneath, and all of the sides. Now you want to make sure to let the first coat dry before you paint the second coat. I of course used my hair dryer to speed up the process. Here's what my buckets look like after 2 coats of the Elephant Gray. Next, we're going to give this a galvanized look, and I love doing this. So the first thing I did was pour some black acrylic paint onto a paper towel and then some white chalk paint from Waverly also on a paper towel. Then I took a regular kitchen sponge, cut a circle out of it, and now I'm just going to dip it in the white paint, dab it off on my paper towel, and just dab, dab, dab all over each one of my pails. Now, whenever I do this, I always think to myself, this looks ugly before it looks pretty. So this just kind of is up to your taste. So there is no right way or wrong way to do this. You really seriously cannot mess this up. So this is just something you have to play around with to get the look that you're going for. So after I dab on all of the white, I go ahead and I jump to the black. Then I go over and kind of mix the two, black and white. Now this next part I think brings it all together. I went ahead and took that Elephant Gray paint and poured it on the paper towel. Then I took my sponge and dabbed that all over all of my pails. And as you can see, it's kind of dulling down the black and white paint to really mix in all of the colors of this galvanized look. Like I said, I think this really completed the pails. Finally, I decided to give it that rust look, so I took my Waverly Antique Wax and a makeup sponge, and I dipped it and dabbed it on the top and the bottom of each of my pails. Then I decided to go around the pails and a little bit in the middle of each one too. I think that this brought the look all together and really gave me the look I was going for. I was really happy with how these turned out. After those were all painted, I put those off to the side and let them dry. Then I went back to my 2 white boards that I had painted and I flipped them over so the white was now on the bottom. Then I took some jumbo craft sticks and I used those to hot glue these boards together. So I just put some hot glue on a jumbo craft stick and then glued them onto the seam of both of my boards. I made sure to cover the entire thing going all the way down. Next, to create the rustic look on my sign, I went back to my Waverly Antique Wax and that makeup sponge and I dry brushed over the edges and the seams and the top, pretty much all of the surface of my boards. I really love doing this because it gives it that distressed look and I am all about rustic. I took my sanding sponge and I sanded down any of the darker parts, and then I kind of went back and forth between the white paint and the Antique Waverly Wax until I got the look that I liked. Then I put that off to the side. Now, I do not own a Cricut, but if you do, you can skip this step. But the next thing I did was take these poster letters that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I decided that I wanted them to be orange. So I went ahead and colored each of the letters that I would need in 4 coats of this pumpkin orange apple barrel paint from Walmart. Now, I apologize about the camera angle on this. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. I don't know if one of my settings got messed with or what, but at least now you can see the whole board, I guess. But after my letters dried, I carefully peeled them off of the sheet and spelled out Carrot Patch. Now, when I spelled this out, I did count out the letters and included the space in between so I can make sure that it was in the middle. And the T and the space, they split center. So you want to make sure that the space and the T are right in the middle. Now, when I originally put the letters on, I did not push them down very hard because I wanted to make sure that they all lined up. Once I felt confident that they were all lined up, I went ahead and pushed them down. Then I just kind of tweaked here and there where I needed. Next, I took this Christmas green apple barrel paint and a foam brush. Now, I did cut down the foam brush to make it a little bit smaller so it fit in one of the slats. Then I made sure that the paint was all along the edges because I wanted to do this in one swipe, and you'll see what I'm talking about right here. So I started at one edge and then made a little wave going across because we're going to put words in there too. Then I went ahead and dried it. Next, I took my sanding block and sanded it down so it wasn't as bold, and of course, to give it that rustic look. Next, I took these stencils that I found at the Dollar Tree, and by using my Waverly chalk paint in white in a small brush, I stenciled on the words, "Pick Your Own." Now, I chose not to dry each letter in between stenciling the next letter because I just thought that that would take really long. So I just carefully lifted it up so it didn't touch the letter before that I had just painted on there. And I did smudge a little bit, but it's so easy to fix. You just take that green paintbrush and you fix it and then you just redo it. So it is very forgiving. Now, once all my letters were stenciled on, I decided I didn't really like that wave that I painted. So I took my Waverly chalk paint in white and a paintbrush, and I just kind of cleaned up the edges to make it one long rectangle. And then there was a lot of green right before the word pick, so I went ahead and painted that down too. That way it was more proportional. Next, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and that makeup sponge again, and I dry brushed over everything I just painted to blend it all in. Then I went ahead and dry brushed over the letters as well to give it, again, that rustic look. Then, to protect my letters and my paint, I used some Mod Podge and painted over the entire sign. Now, I was careful when I painted over the sticker letters, and any of the little sides that would not stick down, I just held them down with my finger a little bit until they adhered to the board. Next, I took my 3 pails and lined them up at the bottom, making sure that my middle pail was in the middle of my board. So after I had them all lined up, I used my hot glue and hot glued all of them down. Next, I took my floral foam and cut some pieces down to fit right in my pails. Now, it was such a snug fit that I did not need to hot glue these in, and I did not push them all the way down. I'm just trying to create a little height, so that way when I put the floral moss in, I don't have to use a ton, and that way it sticks out from the top. So after I had all of my foam in, I took that Spanish moss and I hot glued it to the top of the foam. After that, I took these packages of twine carrots that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I arranged 3 carrots in each pail. Now, I did not hot glue these down because I wanted to arrange them first and make sure I liked it before I made it permanent. So you can hot glue them down at this point, or you can wait, whatever you'd like to do. But I just arranged them that way it looked like the carrots were growing out of these little pails. Next, I took some raffia and I made some raffia bows to stick on each one of my pails. I just tied them like a shoelace and then cut off the tails. Then by using hot glue, I glued them to the middle of each of my buckets. To complete my piece, I needed to add a hanger, so I just took this nautical rope that I also got from the Dollar Tree, cut off a piece of it, and hot glued it to the middle insides of my board. Then I took some leftover scrap paper and hot glued those to the top just to give some extra support. I think this sign came out so great, and like I said, it is an amazing statement piece for your wall, and this will absolutely wow your guests. Well, what do you think? I had so much fun creating this sign, and it is perfect for Easter. I just can't wait to make it part of my decor. Comment and let me know if you're going to be attempting this. And when I added it up, it cost around $7 to make. That's amazing. That's what I love. I love making these amazing statement pieces, but at a cheaper cost. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and like I said, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. I have a lot of content coming up, and I wouldn't want you to miss a thing. Also, please give this video a thumbs up because it really helps to grow my channel. Then hop on over to Facebook and Instagram and give me a like and a follow there to join my crafting community and to see some fun behind the scenes content. Well, until we craft again, I'll see you soon. Bye!